Hello and welcome to the Surviving to Thriving podcast series. I'm your host, Casey Miller. So the purpose of this podcast is to provide you with the knowledge that you need to become the CEO of your health and become the best version of yourself. I really, truly believe this. The top 3 things that you could ever invest in your life are going to be your health, who you surround yourself with, and acquiring more knowledge. If you continuously pour into these 3 cups, I promise you, your life will change dramatically for the better. Now, luckily, this podcast will pour into your health and knowledge, but if you want to surround yourself with like-minded people who will push you to win, go ahead and join our Surviving to Thriving community. We'd love to have you. The link is going to be below in the description. Before we get into our episode, I want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, Legion Athletics. I've been in the game for a long time, and it's really hard to find supplements that you can trust while also tasting great. I believe Legion is a perfect mixture of the two. They're backed by science. Everything is clearly labeled on the bottle. And from my own personal experience, everything does really do taste really great. So if you want to get your own Legion supplements, use the code THRIVINGON, one word, to get 20% off your first order and double reward points. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode. And we are live for another episode. Today, I have with me the lovely Nicole. Nicole she did the little hand on her underneath her chin for those of you that are listening on Spotify. So cute, so adorable. Nicole is on here because she's going to be sharing her story with us today about how she was able to overcome insulin resistance, get off of metformin, but also make sure that she's doing this in a way where she's living her life. She's eating things like cookies and brownies. She's going on dates. She's traveling, vacation, all the different things. And remind me again, how many pant sizes did you lose again?
5.
5. Holy crap. There you go. And you're lifting weights. You're doing all the different things. You're living your best life. I just wanted her to come on here and share her story. As people, we communicate in stories. We get inspired by stories. And a lot of times we're looking to other stories to really motivate us to create that change. I thought no better place to look than our own clients and share their amazing stories, but also provide tactical ways that worked specifically for them. There's so many people that are sharing before and after pictures that it doesn't really actually show you the context. It doesn't show you what was done to get there. It just shows you the highlights. We like to show the ups and the downs. So Nicole has graciously accepted coming on here, sharing her story, sharing what did work, what didn't work, trial and error, to overcome, again, all the different things that was working against her to help her go from surviving to thriving, pun intended, on the podcast. So, all right, Nicole, before we get into your story, can you briefly just introduce yourself? Who are you so people can get to know you?
So I'm Nicole. I'm bubbly. 27, and I've been to 31 states.
31. 31 states. Is that just from random all over, or was there like something specific that made you travel a lot?
I always grew up traveling, and I'm trying to continue that and hit as many as I can each year.
Nice. That's awesome. I love traveling too. That's something that I love doing, but I have not hit the 31 states. It looks like I have to catch up a little bit. Okay, so Nicole, from here, I'm going to resituate and get nice and comfortable. So let's just dive right into your story, right? Like what specifically was going on beforehand before starting with Thriving On? What were you struggling with?
Is eating enough food throughout the day, eating enough protein, drinking enough water. I was trying different, I don't want to say diets because I really wasn't limiting myself, but I was trying to find different workout plans. And none of them seemed to work. And I know I was trying. So I went to my doctor and I got blood work done, and it turned out I was insulin resistant. So that kind of was like, okay, got to rework my diet now and do some research of how I can improve.
Yeah. Right. And then, so during all those different things, did to become insulin resistance, which, by the way, guys, for those of you who are listening, let's talk about what exactly insulin resistance is. So Insulin resistance is actually something that a lot of people struggle with that may cause resistance to seeing the results that they're looking for, whether it's feeling better, losing fat, building muscle, longevity, all the different things. The way that you can develop insulin resistance is through adaptation, right? So your body adapts all the time. Okay. And so one way that your body works is it releases insulin. Whether you're eating carbohydrates, it releases insulin, or if you're stressed, it releases insulin. And just like if you if you are drinking, you drink enough, right? You will start getting used to that. You start creating a tolerance to alcohol so that over a period of time, a certain amount of alcohol will no longer work. It's the same thing with insulin resistance. So if you're somebody who is maybe not eating the right things for your body, maybe snacks on a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of times insulin resistance can be stemmed from chronic stress, right? Whether it is from under eating, like you were talking about before. I think we were talking about this before. You were always doing the eat less, move more from a very young age. It was just constantly just trying to eat less and less and less. And we know this, that depriving your body of nutrients, always being in a calorie deficit, whether it's intentional or not, is not good for you long term. And as you saw over a period of time through that, and then also other stressors, like you were in graduate school, which you just graduated from, right? You chasing
I
after
had
your
multiple jobs
dreams,
at one
going
point.
after, oh yeah, multiple jobs at one point. That was a lot of stress. So now that we're under eating, we're probably not eating the right foods for us. And then also lots of life stress. The body just couldn't take it anymore. And so the body became very adapted to insulin. So now you have this insulin resistance, and that can cause a lot of issues. And so when you went to your doctor, you talked to him with that, right? They assigned you metformin, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Right.
Not
And
fun.
metformin,
Not fun.
no, from what I've heard, which we'll share with them. So from just people who are dealing with some type of blood sugar dysregulation, metformin is often
Or for
subscribed to help.
diabetes, which I did not have.
Well, it helps with blood sugar dysregulation. So there's different ways. There's different forms of blood sugar dysregulation. So there's insulin resistance. There's pre-diabetic. There's diabetic. There's different forms. There's like I was hypoglycemic. That's also a form of blood sugar dysregulation. So metformin can help with regulating blood sugar, but we know this a lot. A lot of medications out there come with their own side effects and is not a long-term solution, right? So can you tell people what you're struggling? I can see your face right now. If you're not watching the video, her face is like, not great. So can you tell them what you went through when you were taking metformin?
Hell.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was not expecting that. Go on.
It was okay. So you know how you're like, oh, I really want to have carbs today, and then you eat the carbs, and then you're running to the bathroom practically halfway through your meal because your stomach's like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you don't want that. Or it's like, oh, you want a brownie? No, you don't. It was kind of like Russian roulette, but with food. Like you never knew what was gonna agree with you or not. And if you think, oh, eggs were like my worst enemy for a while. I could not do eggs, which is like the simplest form of protein. I also couldn't do salads for a while. With like just like lettuce. I couldn't do lettuce. It was like the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
That was for 3 years I was on that.
3 years where you were on that. And so with those 3 years, like you were saying before, it was like Russian roulette. Did it kind of make you feel afraid to eat your food? Did you have
Yeah,
to,
I was like,
focus on that a
okay, if
lot?
I want to eat, yeah, I really had to I did cut a lot of sugars out. I
Yeah.
don't eat pasta as much as I used to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I never was a big sweets person. But sometimes, you want to have a quarter of a crumble cookie. Sometimes it's worth the stomach ache. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, but with
But it just all
metformin, if you're going to be
depends.
running through the bathroom,
Yeah,
that's not fun,
like
right? It's
8, 10 times a day, maybe.
oh boy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're in this situation where you're trying to do a lot of different things and they just weren't working. And also with insulin resistance, you were put on medication that came with its own side effects and 100%. I would be completely afraid to eat. I'll be honest with you. If I was in that situation, I'd be completely afraid to eat. That's really hard to live your life. Like, obviously moderation is really great, but now you're like, were you feeling like you were like almost afraid to eat foods? Like you were fearful of your foods?
I was very fearful for, like, going out to eat
Yeah.
because depending on traffic and stuff, like, you don't know if you could, like, sometimes I barely made it home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it
Yeah.
was not fun.
Not good.
But I
Not
know a
good.
lot of people, they were prescribed it, but they chose to get off of it early because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I tried my best to stick it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I got into lifting again. I got into better eating, and then I eventually was able to decrease my dosage enough that the numbers looked better. So then I was able to
Yeah.
get off of it on the doctor's like okay and approval. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you worked with Toby. I remember us talking about that because we jumped on a call and that was one of the big things that you wanted to do was to get off of metformin. I was like, dope, we can pair you with Toby. For those of you that are listening, Toby is our director of coaching and our head functional nutritionist. He's the one that has a lot of clinical experience. He was the one that was like this close to becoming a doctor and decided to work for Thriving On instead, which we're very, very thankful to have somebody with that much knowledge, especially with the healthcare industry. I feel like a lot of people coming to us, and I feel like a lot of people out there is feeling like this, where we understand the importance of doctors and things like that, but there's a disconnect between reactionary care and preventative care, right? And so many people are going into the doctor and they're getting prescribed things with no exit game plan, and it comes with its own side effects. And a lot of people are like, I would rather do this naturally or at least get a game plan off of it, but they're not getting that through healthcare, which I will say is more of a systemic thing, right? It's the system is just set up with that. There's some really great people within the healthcare system, but we work with a lot of nurses and people in the healthcare industry. They actually really love us, and they all agree every single time I have this conversation that there are just holes within the system. There's only so much that we can do, and so our job with Thriving On is just to help bridge that gap, work with the practitioners, help our clients take more of a preventive approach, and hopefully at the end of it get them off of medication that they don't necessarily need to be on long term, which was your story as well. We were able to slowly do the things that we need to be doing through nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle, so that way your doctor gave you the go ahead to get off of metformin, right? So before getting into that story, I want to get into a little bit more of what made you kind of just jump on, because a lot of people, I think that a lot of people struggle with this. They know they have an issue. They know they
mhm,
need to fix it, but there's a disconnect. A lot of people are lacking that
there's clear
action to
commitment.
take place. Yeah, a serious commitment. Like,
Mhm.
what made you overcome that?
Um, my friend Autumn, who's also, I think she's still a client, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. She encouraged me because we did a trip to Ireland together in 2019. And I think the challenge was the end of 2019 or the beginning of
Oh, the
2020.
Thriving On Challenge? Yeah.
Yep. She encouraged me to do the 21-day challenge, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to fix myself, better myself.
Mhm.
Revenge game. Revenge
Yes,
body.
yes.
Um, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go all in on this. And one of the first calls was like, if you want to extend this or become just have a one-on-one with Casey, text this number. I immediately texted that number. And our first call was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I remember that call. I remember you were talking about your goals, what you wanted to achieve, and I remember at the very end you were like, I don't know if I can do this, right? I think it was oh, I know what it is. It's the whole putting money down, right? This is
Mhm,
for a lot of people, they're looking for help, but the investing in that part is always the hardest.
mhm,
Um and we always say this, like this is a common phrase and all over, is that that those who pay attention,
mhm.
right? Those who invest in things that are important to them, they're the ones that are going to take it seriously. But if you always do like the bare minimum, it usually is a reflection of like what you're going to pay attention to, right? But it's always a big jump. I remember investing in my first coach. It was a huge jump for me. But I remember our conversation on this. I think it was, because you're a grad student, you were in the middle of trying to find a job, things were a little bit tight. And I remember bringing this up, and I was like, I can't remember how we got to this point, but we were just talking about Starbucks, and I was like, girl, how much money do you spend on Starbucks? What?
I was like, oh, that. She got me there.
Yeah, a lot. Like, and Starbucks is not cheap. And I was like, what if you took that money that you're spending towards Starbucks and you just added that up? And we found out that that was like basically what you would do for coaching. And I was like, you're going to spend the money either way. You might as well spend the money on something that's going to make your life better.
And I've stopped and you're like, drinking a lot of Starbucks.
Your wallet is probably thanking you right now. So
I make coffee at home, right? But and my creamer is the Core Life protein, 42 ounce protein. That's my creamer now. So I make healthy coffee at home.
And again, your wallet is probably thanking you right now. Like that investment right there. Like, for example, like we do fitness programming. I can program for myself, but when I program for myself, or if I'm doing like a bare minimum thing, I'm not really going to take it very seriously. Like that's just a reflection of my commitment to that thing. So I know, to play a trick on my mind, like if I'm actually going to do it, I'm going to invest in something so I take it seriously to create the outcome. It's like playing a trick on your mind. So like if you really want to do this, make sure that you're willing to invest in it in some way. That way you actually take it seriously, right? So moving on. So we had that conversation. We got you started. We got that going. It cost you a little bit of Starbucks, but was it worth it?
I don't regret the decision.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And so when you get started, one of the first things that we always do is we just identify what is holding somebody back. Now, we've already talked about like some of the things that were holding you back was your metabolism, right? You had been always under eating. Nobody ever taught you how much you should be eating to keep your metabolism nice and high. And if you're always under eating, your metabolism slows down over a period of time. So let's say that over a course of a period of time, you've done enough diets, you've under ate enough. Now you're eating on average 1,600 calories, but your body's going to adapt. So 1,600 calories is no longer a calorie deficit because it's smart. It's going to start slowing things down. So now you have to diet even harder. Now you have to go into deeper calorie deficit, but the deeper and deeper that you go, the longer and longer that you are in a calorie deficit, there's some negative repercussions. You can start losing muscle mass. Your body can start holding on to fat mass. Your body will start down regulating key functions in the body, like hormonal woes, and also gut issues. That's why a lot of people that are chronic undereaters will start losing fat, get that skinny fat look, right? And they'll also start developing hormonal issues like insulin resistance, because insulin is a hormone, right? And also stress-induced things and gut issues as well, right? So under eating actually just makes it really, really hard. The people that actually get the lifelong, long-term change that people want while eating the food, living the life, feeling great, and being healthy are the ones that are in a calorie deficit the least amount as possible, right? And so the metabolism is holding you back, but also insulin resistance, being on metformin, and just not knowing how to do certain things. You're like, I don't know what I should be doing for workouts. I don't know what I should be eating. I need help figuring out what foods I can or cannot eat just because of the metformin. Things were triggering you, and then you needed a game plan to help you get off of that. You didn't know how to do that as well. But was there anything else that you were like, hey, like looking back, what I was doing before wasn't working, and this is what Tobi helped me change?
I think he kind of just taught me how to like simplify the foods.
Yeah.
And like, there's carbs, but then you have like the pasta carbs, but then you have the healthier fruits as carbs.
Yeah.
So it's like, which carb would you rather eat than like, because fruits never upset me. Also, potatoes never did, but pasta did. So it's
Oh,
trying to
okay,
find
cool.
that, okay, I can eat more potatoes and not so much pasta, or try like whole
Mm.
wheat pasta. But I kind of stuck more with like potatoes and tried to not eat as much pasta.
Yeah, so learning more of what foods work well for you and your body. Like pasta
Mhm.
isn't necessarily bad, but it just didn't work for you. So
Mhm.
doing that trial and error of what works best for you. I think also learning how to regulate blood sugar was a big thing too.
Mhm.
Because like insulin resistance, during that time, you really have to dive into regulating blood sugar. There's multiple different ways that you can do this. You can, for example, you were talking about at the very beginning, increasing your protein intake along with having what we call complete meals at Thriving On, a protein, a fat, and a carbohydrate. When you pair all those three together in complete meals, and you get lots of fiber too, that really
Mhm.
does support great blood sugar levels and also supports good hormonal health and gut health, which all helps with regulating blood sugar, right? I know that you were talking about also hydration,
Mhm.
right? Hydration has such a huge hand in blood sugar. Not a lot of people understand that, and a lot of people are extremely dehydrated.
Yeah.
I know for a fact I get dehydrated when I get busy and stressed. That's the thing that I don't do is I don't drink water. So I always have to make sure I drink water too. Um, and another big thing that we did is we got you in the gym and we got you lifting weights,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I
Yes.
PR'd all the time.
Good. That's what we want. Majority when you find the magic, you start PRing all the time. The gym becomes enjoyable because you're actually doing what works best for you and your body. You're working with your body, not necessarily against it. One of the reasons why we really dove into lifting with her and brought her into our programming is because the more muscle mass that you have, the more insulin sensitive you are, right? So with insulin resistance, you're now not sensitive to insulin, right? So if you can increase your muscle mass, this is actually a really great way to help balance out hormones as well and increase longevity. And it's just fun. It's just fun going in there, crushing some weights, feeling great, feeling strong, seeing that progress in the gym. But it really does help with blood sugar regulation. And so we were starting to do that, getting consistent. Did you tell me before that your boyfriend now is like, can I go in the gym with you? Can I lift with you?
Yeah. Oh, he wants to go as many times as he can now.
Yeah. Does he do
Like, we
the
do our
workouts
own
with you?
thing, but he's like, no, no, he does his own thing. But like I show
Mm-hmm.
him like what my program is for the day. He's like, "Oh, if you need a spotter,
Mm-hmm.
let me know." And I was like, "I don't need a spotter." I'm like, "I'm
I
independent. I don't need a
don't need
spotter."
nothing from you. That's so awesome. That's so great. That's so great. Oh my gosh, I
But
love
then
that
the
so much. So
ex-boyfriend's like, You should cut all the carbs and you should eat like one meal a day." I was like, You have problems."
yeah. You have problems. God, I love you, Nicole.
I'm like, "Do you have
Oh
a
my
coach
gosh.
that's telling you what to eat?" "No." "Are you my coach?" "I'm not taking any advice from you."
Stay in your lane. Yeah. And it's like, did you
Mhm.
drop 5 pant sizes? I don't see that. Did you get off of Metformin? I don't see that. Did you PR all
Nope.
the time? I don't see that. Did you do that while eating brownies? I don't see that. So it's like, yeah, that's 100%. I love that. Okay. So in the second part of how we coach, so like for those of you listening, we usually coach in 3 different phases. Okay. The first phase is basically identifying what's specifically holding somebody back. So the analogy I like using is like working with a personal trainer. Let's say that you have a back squat and you're trying to hit 200 pounds, like get a big back squat, but you're stuck at 160 and you're like, yo, personal trainer, coach, like, I don't know why I can't break past it. Right. Like I keep doing this work and I keep hitting this wall and, I feel achy and cranky and sometimes I get injured and I have to stop and start all over. It's getting frustrated. Like what's going on? A good personal trainer is going to take a step back and be like, okay, we're going to strip you down and look at your foundation and figure out what specifically is holding you back.
Mhm.
Right? Could be feet placement, it could be technique, it could be like, oh, your midlight's not strong enough. Maybe you have a hip shift, or maybe you have a nagging injury that we have to heal really fast, or whatever it has it. Like it's specific for each person, but we're going to take that away so that way you have a solid foundation. That way when you build up, you won't have that threshold. You'll break past it. and you'll enjoy the process. But most people, what we're seeing in the nutrition fitness industry, and probably what you experience too, is like, oh, you're not seeing results. You're not motivated enough. You're not working hard enough. You're not in a calorie deficit enough. You're not restricting the right types of foods. You need to restrict all these different foods. Social life, say goodbye to that. Like, that's just the messaging that we're getting. And if we got that same messaging within like a personal trainer, we would fire them. But now it's become normal within the nutrition side of things, and the fitness side of things too. I would honestly say it's just like push through the pain, all these different things. But we want to expect that from a personal trainer. And so the first phase is like tearing you down, figuring out what held you back. So we identified, like, just didn't know what foods worked for you, didn't know what workout program that would work best for you, like the insulin resistance, metformin. And then also, like, I would also say from an outside perspective, a lot of pressures from people around you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You want to go a little bit more in depth with that too?
It's just, people like to think that, because you mentioned it before, you eat less and move more. It's like, everybody is not cookie cutter. Everybody's different. Like, I have to have, I think I'm right now at 150 grams of protein a day. And I know that's not what I should be eating, but that's what my goal is right now. So it's kind of like, not everybody is the same. And a lot of people have that old school mindset. And I think it's like breaking the stigma of that, because everything has changed and evolved since. So,
yeah, 100%. What we thought worked in the 60s and 70s is just being preached still today, and nobody's updating the information when it's a whole lot of gray. It's not black and white. And so breaking past what you learned before that clearly wasn't working, and learning what does work for you, and understanding what you do is going to be different than everybody else, but you need to stay in your lane and not get distracted by that. I know Tobi and you had multiple conversations about that kind of stuff, and kind of brought you back on path and kept going and trusting the process. Right. And then so the phase number 2 is where we start creating change. But I always say this, we need to make change in a way that is going to be long term, right? The methods are no longer going to be sustainable. I mean, the results are not going to be sorry. Words are hard right now. It is 5:00. This is my 10th call. Let's go. Your results will not be sustainable if your methods are unsustainable, right? And so we've got to get really clear about who you are and how you want to live your life, right? Like, for example, you like traveling. So we need to make sure that we're creating results while traveling and maintaining results while traveling. I know that we talk about cookies and brownies a lot. Hello, I have a tattoo of a cookie on my forearm. You got to make sure that you're seeing results while being able to eat that, while being busy, while working. I know that, again, you graduated grad school. You had multiple jobs at some point. You're on the go, you're traveling, all these different things. We need to make sure that we're doing something that's going to be sustainable for you, that helps you live your best life, not tear you down. So what are some of the things that you did that helped you live your best life while that you started seeing results?
I definitely made myself a priority. First, I made myself a priority. Sometimes I'd be like, I'm going to the gym. People are like, you see on social media, it's like, would you rather go to the gym by yourself or spend time with your family that you might not have as much? Like, I'd rather go to the gym because I'm bettering myself for the long term so that I could be around like my future family longer, and I won't be aching when I'm like 72. So I put myself first. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be selfish.
I always like to say this. It's not necessarily selfish.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're doing it for yeah, that's what people assume from an outside perspective. Right? And you really can't blame people, because, like, especially women, we have been really conditioned to think that focusing on us is vain and selfish. It's taking time away from other people and other things. And I think also it's almost a competition within women of who can sacrifice the most of themselves, because the more you sacrifice yourselves, the more kind you are, I guess, better woman you are. And I'm just like, that's not how that works. Because if you want to be yourself, yeah, you lose yourself. You start getting disconnected with your identity. You start resenting the people around you because you're always sacrificing yourself. And I think that most women are really driven by contribution. We want to contribute. We want to add value. We want to leave the world better than when we started. We want to see people around us and the people that we love get better, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we have this perception of I need to sacrifice myself all the time. But when we really take a step back, if I'm only pouring 10% into me, I'm only pouring 10% into everybody else. And I'm going to hate everything. Now I'm going to be very resentful over everything. Now I'm not going to be my best self. So the actual goal that you have is not happening. And now you're frustrating because you need to take a step back and realize pouring into yourself is what allows you to pour into other people. So it actually becomes one of the most unselfish things that you could ever do is to be pouring into you, which I know I struggled with this because I am so driven by contribution. Like I literally, what makes me happy is just seeing people like you happy and changing your life and being successful. That's what seriously makes me happy every single day. But I've gotten in this position where the more that I sacrifice myself, like the more I'm going to be pouring into people, the more that I'm going to contribute. But then I became almost resentful of things. Something that I really loved, I almost became resentful of it because I felt so misaligned with my identity. I stopped taking care of myself. I started not prioritizing myself. I wasn't my best self to my staff and to my clients. And I started seeing it. And so taking a step back, I've recently, over the past year, after having actually Tobi sometimes coaches me. We're actually going to get started in January. He had a hard conversation with me and he's like, Casey, it's because you're not taking care of yourself. Like the blood work is showing, like you are stressed beyond belief and it's going to affect you physically, but it's also going to affect you psychologically. And now you're not showing up as your best self as a teammate, as a leader. You've got to change. And that was the slap in the face that I needed. Ever since I made that change, night and day difference in terms of life. I feel like I'm coming back better. I feel like I'm contributing more. And sometimes it's like less is more. Like more is not always better. It's better is better. And sometimes less makes it better. Like less pushing, less sacrificing is actually probably better for you. Anyways, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole. I apologize. I sometimes go through those. I do. I know me and rabbit holes.
You always go down a rabbit hole.
I always do. And then get Tobi and I in the same call. Woo! Same thing.
That was a lot of fun though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. For those of you that are listening,
you made a really sweet comment and I forget what it was, but it made me get goosebumps.
Goosebumps? I wish I remember that. For those of you that are listening, we actually did a call before, but I was traveling at home.
You're in a garage.
I was in my garage gym. Yes, thank you. And the audio was so bad, and I felt so bad we had to redo this. But you know what? I like this call. It's going great. Right?
Something about the change that you saw, I think.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. It was basically what I was saying. It's just like the change that I saw with you from start to finish. And I think this is actually the best part of coaching is when you see somebody come in the door and they really dive head first and they trust the process and they work with the coaches and they really believe that they deserve to make the change and they can make themselves a priority. And you see this evolution of a person. Like, don't get me wrong. Like what I saw before, still a phenomenal and beautiful person. But like the journey of you growing, like I've just seen you blossom into your best self. And I honestly think that you're just starting, to be honest with you. Right? Like, yes, you're down 5 pant sizes, which is awesome. Yes, you're getting stronger in the gym and you're building muscle. Yes, now you don't have to spend money on Metformin and constantly run to the toilet. Yay! But I think what a lot of people miss is that if you're just seeing the scale go down or the pant size go down or things like that, you didn't do it right. This can completely transform somebody's life. And I really do believe it. You have elevated as a person. You have grown into a very strong and independent and beautiful human being inside and out. And again, I think that this is just the beginning of your story, to be 100% honest with you. So I'm very, very, very proud of you. And I'm very proud to call myself your coach. But secondary coach, Tobi is mainly your coach, but just seeing you, seeing the whole process from the outside perspective and jumping on calls with you, it's very proud of you. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That was another rabbit hole, but I wanted to point out, I think people need to hear this. You, while you're seeing results, didn't you go on multiple vacations?
Yeah. This past year I just went on 2 cruises.
That's awesome.
And
That's
let me
awesome.
tell
Were you afraid of them? Were you like, a
No,
lot of people are afraid to go on vacations or things like that? No?
I love cruises. I actually haven't been on one since 2014, so I'm kind of
Mhm.
making up for lost time. But I
Nice.
always took the stairs. Um, Royal Caribbean on Liberty of the Seas.
Yeah.
Fantastic fitness center.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic. Princess, it was okay. Now it's an older clientele ship. But I was in the gym, I was on the treadmill. I looked out, I saw a lot of dolphins jumping. So that was really fun.
Yo, that's awesome. And so like typically people are afraid to go on vacation because they're afraid that they're gonna go overboard, they're gonna gain a ton of weight back or anything like that. You said that you weren't afraid of it. What were some of the things that you did, like besides just walking and going to the fitness center, that made sure that you stayed in control? Not necessarily control, but you stayed aligned. You stayed aligned with taking care of yourself instead of completely going back to what you would probably do before.
So I'm gonna break it down for both cruises. For the Royal,
Okay.
um, there were rough waters. So that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of making me not want to eat as much because it was during a storm. We went during a storm. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to the buffet as much, and if I did, I went during lunch because I know they had amazing chicken tenders. So I got my protein for the day with a plate full
Chicken
of chicken.
tendies.
But like for dinner, you're allowed the appetizer, entree, and dessert. That's really the only dessert I had was at dinner. I
Mhm,
didn't really I didn't get ice cream on either
mhm,
ship.
mhm,
Um, and I just had a dessert that came with the dinner, and that was my sweet for the day.
mhm,
And then with Princess, they had there was a Princess Dream Boat dessert. It was like raspberry and chocolate mousse.
oh
I had
gosh,
that like every day because it didn't upset my stomach at all.
that's
So I
amazing.
enjoyed that, but I didn't get any extra sweets. I walked a lot of the ship, drank a lot of water, but I just kind of didn't really, I didn't have any pasta on either ship either.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like just making like the better food choices.
yeah.
Um,
It
yeah.
sounded like you were practicing moderation. Like, that elusive moderation where people are like, I just want to be able to just eat one cookie and not 10. Like, you were able to practice moderation. You had that moose every single day, but you also did easy things that you could do on your cruise, like walking, things like that, to stay consistent and things like that. But most people, I think, that moderation or that consistency of being able to do things even when things change, even when people go on vacation, that's like the elusive, like, how do I do that? Right. But
Yeah.
I think from an outside perspective of what I know that we worked on together is like understanding that there's no good foods or bad foods. There's just foods that work
Mhm.
best for you. And we're just going to lean into that. And we worked on that moderation, the practicing of just having one and being okay with it. I think that does need to take strategic practice, and then putting yourself in other positions like date nights, going out to eat, learning how to enjoy those things, putting in the practice so you can create that almost proof to yourself. Because a lot of times people won't believe something until they see it, right?
Mhm.
And so, in order for you to believe that something's going to happen, you have to put that into action. You have to practice that to figure out what works best for you over a period of time. So that way, by the time you got to a cruise, you and Tobi worked well on that. So that way, cruise time, you're like, I'm good. Like,
I
I've
mean, I
got
could
this
have
whole thing.
splurged. I
What?
chose not. I could have splurged, but
Yeah.
I chose
I
not to because I didn't want to have any issues on a cruise. I want to enjoy it.
yeah.
So I didn't even really want dessert either.
Yeah. Weird thing. Some people are like, Desserts
Okay,
are
I
my
had ice
thing. How do
cream
you?
one time on Royal, but that was because I put it in my coffee because it was like really
Oh.
strong. So I got a cafe mocha at Starbucks on the ship, and I didn't put any any creamer in it because I just wanted to try a cafe mocha. I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, this is really strong." So I went to
Hmm.
the Ben and Jerry's across the promenade. I got a
Yeah.
scoop of chocolate ice cream, put that in my coffee.
Love it.
That was the only
That's what
only
I
thing
call
I had.
living your best life. Going on a cruise, having ice cream, coffee, chocolate every single night, and yet still being able to maintain your progress or keep progressing, like not completely derailing yourself. I know that a lot of people would be like, if I did that, like I would gain 10 pounds. I just look at that. But like when you fix your metabolism, when you fix your internal health, when you figure out what works best for you, you find your moderation, you put that into practice. Now these things become easy. It no longer controls you. You
Mhm.
control it because you figured out what works best for you, which is beautiful. I love that. I love that so much. So again, through this whole process of again learning how to overcome insulin resistance, learning how to figure out what works best for you, learning how to break past old thinking of what nutrition fitness is supposed to be and learn what works best for you. Again, get really that personalized. You were able to get off of metformin, drop 5 pant sizes. You were able to learn how to eat foods, travel, go on cruises, go on date nights, and you just keep progressing. I all I hear is that Nicole's doctor is super happy with what we're doing. Like I finally like I got her down another dosage of metformin. I'm finally like when Tobi was like, he texted me, he's like, Nicole is finally off of metformin. And we were both
And
like,
you're
yes.
texting
I
you
called
guys
him. I was like,
too.
fuck yes. I was so excited for you. That's so great. Because
You
again,
were the
that was
first,
one of your big goals.
and you were the first. Like I didn't even tell my mom first. I told you and Toby first. I was like, "This is
Ah!
big news. I have to tell them first," and then I told my mom.
Yeah. I know. And there's sometimes we jump on calls and you're like, hey, I just wanted to talk and tell you that I like, what was the last one? You're like, I bought a new dress and I freaking love it or something like that.
Yeah, for the Christmas party on Christmas Eve, I bought a dress.
Yep.
Like, whoa.
Yep. And you're looking rocking and you're sharing some before and after pictures, night and day difference. Night and day difference. And it wasn't from starving yourself. It wasn't doing from ungodly amounts of cardio. It was doing it the right way, making sure that we're adding value to your life. We're making you feel better. You're making sure that you're living your best life and making sure that, like, on the other end, when you do leave us, because you do have to leave us, Nicole, no matter how much we love you, right? One day, I know. One
But I
day, though,
won't
you're
leave.
going to be able to be,
I'll still have you on social media. I just,
oh, hell yeah.
can't like completely
You're
leave.
never leaving the thriving on family, right? But sooner or later, you're going to get to a point where you don't need a coach anymore,
I know.
right? I know you can we'll still love on you. You're still part of the thriving on family. Don't worry. But sooner or later you're going to get to this point where you're going to be able to do this on your own. That's a big goal. And when you do leave, right? You're going to leave us better mentally and physically. Healthier, happier, and confident with yourself that you can do this for life. So, and you're doing fantastic. I love it. I love it so much, right? So, Nicole, to wrap this up, what I want to do is give you a second to just give your final notes. If somebody listening here is struggling right now, struggling to figure out what works best for them, was starting in, like, let's say old you. Ooh, let's do this. I love this
Oh,
question. Old you, starting off right now. You're talking to your old you, feel stuck and everything like that. What would you tell your old person right now? What do you wish you would say?
the biggest thing I would say is don't give it a timeline. Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody progresses differently. I
Mm-hmm.
always was I've had a lot of conversations with Toby, about comparing myself, but like you can't compare yourself to somebody's chapter. It's not the same chapter as you, or
Exactly.
like you can't compare that.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't compare yourself. Don't put a timeline on it. Just like I don't want to say put your blinders on. That sounds too cliche. But just
But if
kind of
it's
like
applicable, I would say that too. Just stay in your lane. Put your
just
blinders
like
on and stay in your lane,
people
right?
people are always going to have opinions. They're always going to put in their two
Mm-hmm.
cents.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just really like let people talk, but I would talk with Casey and Toby about it, and they're like, "Well, they're not us. You put your trust in us. We're not going to steer you down the wrong path. Clearly you haven't, because I've I've had success.
Yeah.
So just like, don't, like, you can let people talk, but don't really like listen to them. It's like, was it gray noise, black brown noise, what, white noise.
White noise. There you go.
Yeah, I couldn't think of what color noise it was.
I think there's a bunch of different color of noises, but that's a whole nother discussion. We don't need to get me on a rabbit hole.
It's like, just like stay, like, put yourself first sometimes, because if people stick around and support you, that's great. If not, they're not meant to be in your life anyway. I've learned that the hard way. But yeah.
Stick
That's
with
what I
it.
would have to
Stay
say.
in your lane. Stick with
Yeah.
what works best for you. And I 100% agree that comparison game, comparing yourself to somebody's chapter like 10 when you're in chapter 1 or 2, like that's not realistic, right? It's like seeing, like, you're down, like, let's say 2 pant sizes, right? And you see Kathy online's down 40. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, my stuff sucks. I should probably just do what Kathy's doing. It's like Kathy might be on chapter 50, and now you're quitting something that actually works best for you.
Or she might be doing
Right.
something like depriving herself of stuff, and then how many years down the road she'll be like, oh, and like be in a worst case scenario. So
Yeah, it's how you do it. You know how I'm always saying it's how you do it matters. Like, losing the weight is losing the weight. It's like traveling a mile. You can travel a mile in the hot sand and it's miserable, and sooner or later you're going to give up, or you can go in a Ferrari and do what's right, and it's like, it's enjoyable, it's sustainable, you want to do this more, right? Like, you can lose the weight, you can do a drastic calorie deficit, you can restrict yourself, you can do a ton of cardio. That's what a lot of people are doing nowadays. And you can wreck your hormones, you can wreck your metabolism, you can wreck your internal health, you can wreck your relationship with food, and then gain it back and then some. Like 80% of people that go into trying to create a change through dieting gain it back and then some later on. It's like, what the methods out there is just not working. How about we do it right? Right. So I love that. I love that so
And
much.
I've
Well,
actually cut a
Nicole,
lot of cardio back, and I lift before I do cardio now,
let's go.
because you have
My
more
cardio
energy
isn't bad.
when you just lift, and then then you do cardio
Mm-hmm.
afterwards.
Yeah. Like, I always say this, you lift to look good naked and feel great, and longevity as well, right? It really helps with internal health, but you also do cardio because it's great for mental health. Cardiovascular health is essential too. It helps with heart health and so many different things. It helps with just being able to push more in the gym too. If you have better cardio, you're able to lift weights more efficiently. It's good for better sex. It's all these really great things. So it's more of like understanding what is the appropriate thing and how to use it best for you, rather than being like cardio is bad, weightlifting is bad. It's just like, let's just figure out what works best for you. Right, which we did, which turned out to be less cardio, more lifting weights, and freaking A, man, it's been working. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for jumping on this call. I really
At
appreciate you for
last.
sharing your story. And really, I hope if you're listening to this, this gives you some tactical things that you can do in your journey, some things to consider and try out to see if that works best for you. If you ever have any questions based off of what we talk about, you can always reach out to me. My contact information is going to be in the show notes below. And if you're in a position where you're wanting to experience what Nicole did, jump on, thriving on, help find what works best for you, so that way you don't need another coach again, go ahead and head down to the show notes too, and you'll find the application link. We'll just jump on a call. We'll talk about your goals and see if it's a good fit. And if it is, we're going to hit the ground running and go. All right. So thank you so much, Nicole, for joining in. All right. And thank you guys. Of course. And thank you guys for listening to another episode. Again, your time and attention is extremely appreciated. You showing up and being and listening to this episode start to finish means more than you know. If you find that this is super helpful, just help us out a little bit. Our main goal is to help as many people as possible, whether it's through coaching or just sharing the good word of good information to help people live their best life instead of feeling like they're trapped in a prison. So if this is helpful and you think that this episode would be helpful for somebody else, share it, right? Share it with them, spread that good word, help us with our mission. Other than that, until next week, Have a great time. Thank you so much.